have just with TSMC, we have that one company is investing over 40 billion in us. So we aren't the
Whoa.
same as anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently 40 billion. My name is Kevin McIntosh, and this is The Closing Table, where we talk to experts about their experience in real estate all across the country. Let's go. Welcome to the Closing Table Podcast. I am your host, Kevin C. McIntosh. And joining us on this episode, ready to talk about real estate in her market, we are welcoming Nancy Wittenberg to the Closing Table. How are you, Nancy?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Starting off 2024, fresh attitude, fresh mindset. I'm feeling good. So thank you for being here.
Awesome.
Good. So we're here to talk about real estate specifically, but I want to talk about you before we get into that. Hey, Nancy, in 60 seconds or less, can you tell us who you are outside of real estate?
Well, I'd say I'm a passionate woman. I love creating mixed media paintings, horseback riding, indoor skydiving. I'm level 2 finally. I'm working at growing plants and not killing them at the same time. And I occasionally cook. A bunch of some other things that I do is I like to volunteer. I volunteer for Free Arts for Abused Children, and I'm also working with Valley Interfaith Project to increase affordable housing for seniors in Chandler, Arizona.
Love that. Love the giving back to the community in the housing aspect outside of your profession, you know, the volunteering aspect of it. So gotta love that. That speaks to your character. So
Thank
we
you.
know we're here for real estate. Let's talk about your real estate business. I want you to describe your real estate business for us. And if you are able to hit on a few key points, how long you've been licensed, your niche or specialty, and any notable achievements.
All right, so I've had my license since 2010. I love working with first-time homebuyers and sellers that are focused in Chandler, Arizona, also Mesa and Gilbert as well. And I love education, which is kind of strange because it can be sort of a lot of time and effort. But I do have 6 extra certifications that helps me work with buyers and sellers, home valuations, negotiation techniques, client diversity, all that kind of things.
Nice. Beautiful. So since 2010, you say you've been licensed? 2010?
Yeah. Yep. I'm
Wow.
glutton for
So
punishment.
you so you've seen it all too, coming straight out of the housing crisis into what that, you know, after the dust settled, whatever that was, all the way into dealing through whatever the pandemic was and those effects. But you've been here for over 10 years. Congratulations, first and foremost. It speaks to your success. And you got over that tough hill of what they usually say between the 3 and 5 years, which usually is the hump of once you get over that, you can really set yourself up as being a successful agent. So congratulations on all your success so far. But now I want to talk about the actual market, right? You spoke on it briefly. We're in Arizona. The Mesa area. Excuse me. I know I'm probably saying that wrong. So here's your opportunity to not only pronounce it right, but describe your current market that you're serving and go into many details for someone who may have never been there.
Okay, so Phoenix, Arizona is in Maricopa County. I tend to work in the southeast quadrant, which is Gilbert, Mesa, Chandler, Tempe, basically those areas. Right. So it's just Mesa, you know, it's simple pronunciation. Hey, no worries. If you, we do have a lot of Spanish names out here for obvious reasons. Okay. And so it means table in Spanish. So, so let's see here, some notable landmarks. Well, a lot of this area, you know, we are relatively new. So when you're talking about Chandler and Gilbert, they're large rectangles that are just next to each other that run north and south. And both of them have older sections, but most, the most amount of building is, started like in the 1990s and the 2000s. So
Really?
for the size of cities that they are, they're still pretty new, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Chandler and Gilbert were two of the fastest growing cities in the early 2000s in the nation. And if you come here, you can see that. So I kind of like, so when I first meet with a client, I talk a little bit about every city kind of has their own vibe. And Chandler's is really technology driven, family
Hmm.
oriented. I actually put a lot, the city council puts a lot of attention into cultural diversity, which I think is pretty amazing. As a matter of fact, Chandler is more culturally diverse than Phoenix is. And Phoenix, of course, it's our state capital. It's much, much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because Chandler is technology and family driven, they've completely redone their downtown and it incorporates those kinds of values. So you kind of have bars and grills, but you don't really have dance clubs or adult entertainment or
Right.
anything like that.
Right.
And Gilbert's actually
Interesting.
very similar. But Gilbert is more down home country style. So when you go down there downtown, there's definitely a newer section, but they're trying to keep that kind of country vibe going on. And
Mm-hmm.
Mesa and Gilbert's very similar as far as when it was built out and that kind of thing. Mesa is a giant number seven. It's huge. And because of that, so the top part, the horizontal, which goes east to west,
Mm-hmm.
that part is, you know, a lot of it was built in the 50s and 60s. So it's older for our standards, but certainly not for a lot of the United States. So that section, they've revitalized the downtown. There's tons of artwork. They're trying to do more mom and pop um, vendors and companies that kind of have a unique feel to it that aren't just
Mm.
your standard kind of restaurant that you see all over the place. And then as you head to the south part, that's where the Gesa Phoenix Gateway Airport is. And
Okay.
so that entire area is being completely built out. And there's still a fair amount of agriculture. You've got cows over there.
Okay.
And then you've got large corporations that are going in there as well.
Interesting. Interesting. See, when you mentioned that it's a technology driven market in that area, I was wondering, like, it must be some companies that are moving down there that are actually starting to migrate in the area.
Well, for example, Chandler, it has Intel and microchip and EX.
Ah,
Yeah, I always forgot the other name. I say EXP, but then I always think of the. Anyways, so it's got Intel. It's actually expanding. They've got
right,
more
right.
buildings and all of the suppliers, and also the Phoenix metropolitan area in the very, very north part of Phoenix. The TSMC is coming in. That is the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. They're coming
Mm,
in. They're actually still being built. They would have been finished a lot sooner, but because they can't hire enough people, they had to slow down their construction. They can't open when they really wanted to. So we are having a massive boom in all kinds of technology from microchip to manufacturing.
you're right,
So we have a
right.
ton of jobs out here.
Right. Ooh, okay. Jobs, opportunities. Hello, ring, ring, ring. It's right there in Arizona, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that with us, Nancy. Okay, so let's get into some of the data, the economics of your market.
Oh,
What
you're
are the
probably going to,
housing prices looking like?
before we go too much into the housing prices, you're also going to want to ask about weather.
Oh yes. How could I forget? It's January, technically winter. What's the weather like there? Please, please.
It's going to be beautiful, low 70s today. So our winters are really mild. Like
Woo.
usually We're in the 40s at night, 70s during the day. That's our norm.
Mm.
For maybe,
Ah.
a week or two, it drops down into the 30s and we all panic,
The
and cover up
30s.
our plants. And then, so our winters are pretty mild. Our fall and spring, absolutely amazing. Our summers, not so much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, July and August, we're
Yeah, I heard.
lucky. Yeah, July and August, we're lucky if it goes like less than 110. And I know that sounds like a lot for everywhere else. We do have a dry heat. It's just like opening your oven. That's a
Yep,
dry
yep.
heat.
Oh
It's
my
not like you're
goodness.
like, oh, I don't feel it. You're gonna feel it. It's gonna burn a little. But yeah, we're one of the largest cities in the nation. So,
Okay.
you just use
So
AC.
you say four. I didn't expect 40 degrees in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm gonna tell you that now. But then when I think about it, it is pretty much, you correct me if I'm wrong, like desert land, right? So I can
Yeah, and
kind
I,
of
I
see
just
it
mean that at
possibly.
night.
Right, 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 right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Wow. So it seems pretty low. I wouldn't have thought that low. Even for a low in Arizona, I would not have thought that. But wow, yeah. 70 degrees. Bring that to me right now. Please send that my way right now. I will take 70 degrees in January all day, every day. Okay, but good. So now let's talk about the housing prices. This is what we're here for. What are housing prices, average day on the market, list to sale price, any information data you can share with us? How's that looking in your market?
Well, I have to tell you, I mean, I have one of those personalities. I can talk forever, very outgoing, but I also love statistics.
Okay.
So when we're talking about our area, I'm going to kind of bridge that with statistics. So
Mm-hmm,
ASU,
mm-hmm,
Arizona State University, is in Tempe, which is in the southeast part. They have, I mean, they're just so innovative. They're an amazing school. And
mm-hmm,
they had a program that the School of Business, the JP Carey School of Business, they had this, they started off with this program or this kind of spin-off that became the Cromford Report. So the Cromford Report is available to all licensed realtors for a monthly fee, and I pay
mm-hmm.
for that. So I've got access to the best statistics, not just MLS, but also the Cromford Report. And the difference between the two is I can get a lot more graphs and really dig into the data a lot more with the Cromford Report. So when I talk numbers, I can actually send you where I'm getting my data from.
Yeah.
So this is legit, it's reproducible, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I got all excited, like I said, I just love numbers. So Chandler is actually in a balanced market, and it's been balanced since July of 2020. Sorry, it's been balanced since July 2023, and just started ticking up just a little bit from that balanced line a little bit towards seller's market, and it's been going up gradually, very slowly,
Really?
but since mid-November. So we now have basically 45 days of every week going up a little bit more.
Mm.
So I'm actually pretty excited about that. But there's so much more to just the numbers. I mean, just to that number. For example, if you want to know when it's a balanced market and the reasons why, Chandler's supply, for example, is 70% below normal.
Wow.
So that for supply is massive.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's here. Now demand is 50% of normal. So when people say, "Oh, how do your prices go up?" Supply and demand. It's just basic math.
Right,
When you
right, right.
have, 70% reduction in demand and only 50, I'm sorry, in inventory and 50% reduction in buyers, you have a whole lot more buyers than you do sellers.
Still
And
true. Yeah.
that's why things are going up. So,
Mm.
one fun thing is we have in Chandler right now, and remember, December is the worst time to sell a home. Our average days on market is 44 days. So we're actually doing pretty darn good at this time of year.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Another statistic that I think is kind of cool, because everyone always wants to know, well, are housing prices going up? Because most news companies, like they talk national, which is totally fine, but you're not buying a national house. You're buying a
Mm.
house where you are.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take December year over year, the monthly average sales price by square foot for homes between 15 and 2,500 square feet, so I'm taking a very average chunk, they've
Right.
actually increased by 3.8%. So when people are saying, oh, last year housing prices totally went down, yeah, they went down. And then they kind of started going up, and
Yeah.
they didn't go
Yeah.
down as much as they went up year over year for December or Decembers.
Right.
So
That is crazy. I literally heard that exact same number percentage increase for the Reno, Nevada market. Literally that exact same, about 3%. So I don't want to say that's obviously a nationwide thing, but it does seem to kind of be, I don't want to say a norm, but it's similar. It's that same thing is being repeated in other markets that I would say is in that same region and whatnot. I wonder what factors play into that necessarily, because believe it or not, Reno, Nevada. Not to take it off Arizona, but Reno is it seems like very much, pretty much in the same position for the most part. You are seeing a lot of luxury out there, though. That is the one thing, you are seeing a lot of luxury. So I guess I will ask about that. Are you seeing a lot of luxury in your market? A lot of luxury properties?
absolutely. But one thing that's kind
Mm,
of weird, I guess you could say, for the size of our county, we don't. So TSMC, which I already mentioned, they're
right.
bringing in a lot more people with money. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have enough luxury homes for them. So
Uh,
there are now again, that's North Phoenix,
right.
but we're all interconnected because we're in the metropolitan area. So luxury has, I mean, definitely been doing very well, and
Mm-hmm.
has, and they're trying to build more because we primarily don't have a lot of product over $10 million, and we've got a demand for it. So we'll see what happens in the future,
Yeah,
but I
I
do
know.
expect
That's
a
what I was
lot
gonna
more.
say. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So we'll revisit that a year from now or so and see how that worked out. When so another thing that I don't think too many people are privy to in that market is the fact that you deal with droughts. Now, that's something that we're not familiar with here in the Midwest, specifically Michigan. So, when you're dealing with your clients, how do you guide them through considerations of these drought related issues, especially when it comes to water usage, landscape choices, water? Like, talk about that issue that you have to deal with.
sure. And I can answer this from a few different perspectives. New
Mm-hmm.
builds, pretty much you're not even allowed to put in grass anymore, and it's got to be desert landscaping, which means drought
What?
resistant trees and bushes. And then we've got a lot more people that are building turf, putting in turf.
Oh, okay.
Cities a lot of times are giving rebates to switch from grass to turf. So when we're talking about water, it's actually a lot more complicated than just turning on the tap. Different.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got, so for how basically how we regulate water, there's three different ways we get water. There's the Colorado River, there is the Salt River Project, and then there's also underground. The
Mm-hmm.
underground is regulated through what's called an AMA, the Phoenix Area Management. I'm sorry, I totally said that wrong. Let me repeat. So the Phoenix AMA is actually, I totally said that. I got stuck. Hold on.
No, you're fine.
Rewind.
You're
All
fine.
right. Mm, okay. Arizona has different areas called the active management areas, and that's for underground water.
Mm.
Those are going to be where your main cities are.
Mm-hmm.
So those areas are actually highly regulated for the water that's allowed to go out per city. And that has been regulated for a ton of years so far. Now, the Phoenix AMA does not cover all of Maricopa County. So there are some outlying cities that are not included in that. And
Ooh,
there are some cities that still get water from SRP, and so, that's the Salt River Project, and
okay.
some from the Colorado River. And so, depending on where the city is and what they've connected to, some of them have a much better future possibility for having water, years and years into the future. So,
Whoa.
I have websites, I've got links, I'm big on data, as I've already said. So I share that information with my clients, and I make sure when they're buying a home that they have a plan. Do you want to live in it 5, 10, 20 years? If you're
Mm-hmm.
thinking short term, it's not a big deal. I wouldn't worry about where you buy it, where they get the water from. If you're talking 20 years or maybe more, then and if you ever want to sell your house, then I think that could have an impact in your decision making. Now, do I think we're going to have major issues in 20 years? No, but I'm not the one in the know. I'm just guessing based on what
Right,
they
right.
say. So, I always think in terms of what is your future plans? Where do you need? And then buy based on, look at the area that's best going to meet your needs.
Oh,
And I actually have
oh
a
my
video
goodness.
on my YouTube channel about the Phoenix
Okay.
AMA, in case you want to
Okay.
see it
Yeah, yeah.
at
What's the
another
name of
time.
that video? You know.
It's Phoenix AMA actually, and it's on my
Okay.
YouTube channel, which you can
Okay.
find with Nancy Wittenberg Real Estate.
Yes, please. We'll make sure we check that out also and support that. But wow, that is mind blowing coming from a person who's resided in a state that's surrounded by water. The source for fresh water, by the way. But that is crazy to hear. That's a whole nother perspective, whole nother factor into the home buying process that the average person wouldn't consider. The amount of water that you have to consume, save, not use, and then you blew my mind with this. New construction properties, or you said are not allowed to have grass?
Correct. And it's been that way
Oh,
for a handful of years now.
you
Yeah.
know what's so the crazy thing about that is I've seen videos, pictures of neighborhoods in Arizona, and I've noticed that, but I never thought twice about it. But now that you say it, I'm thinking back to all the clips and videos I've saw of people that lived in that area. I'm like, wow, they don't have grass. They don't have grass. And I never thought about that, but it's part of a bigger issue too. So thank you for providing that context, because someone like myself would never be privy to it.
I know people, I've had clients from Michigan, and the
Mm.
idea that you turn on your tap and it's not coming, it's not beautifully clean water. We have a lot of calcium in our water. It just, it's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. I literally know at least two, I want to say three friends who literally moved from Michigan to Phoenix, the Phoenix area. All three of them were in radio, so they're doing radio in that area. But that is wow. Wow. Okay. Wow, that's a whole nother beast and animal. But the municipalities, the government, I'm pretty sure they do what they have to do to make sure that they're rationing out everything as needed. So it's good
Oh
that they're
yeah,
doing that.
they've been, I mean, I'm not even going to get into the weeds on this one, but there's a lot that's been happening
Yeah.
in some cities. Some cities are much better than others.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yep,
yeah. I imagine. So,
yep.
since you said the Phoenix area has a great, diverse package of neighborhoods, let's say, I know this has to be quite, intriguing for certain people, certain cultures who may want to be in certain neighborhoods. So, how do you match these varied preferences with the needs of your clients when it comes to these neighborhoods?
Sure. So what I'm really balancing is I don't want a red line. And if
Of
you've ever
course, of
heard of that,
course.
that's basically saying, oh, you need to live here. And
Mm-hmm.
that was used for terrible reasons. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
support any of those. And I very much support fair housing. So I ask a lot of questions. I mean, So when I first meet with a client, I sit down with them and I say, how well do you know the area? How long have you lived here? I've lived here 23 years, so I know it pretty well.
Right.
And I say, they'll say, oh, I want to live in the city. Well, what does the city look like to you? Because in Chandler, there's actually parts of the city that are still agricultural. And then there's their downtown. But we don't have that many big buildings. Intel's buildings are huge, but most of our buildings are, less than 3 stories. So when you say
Really?
city, sometimes you're saying suburban, sometimes you're saying urban. While our urban areas in the southeast are pretty much north part of Tempe around ASU. That's where they're starting to put in high rises. You've got incredible mass transit. You've got so many things to do in C, where in the other parts, like Chandler and Gilbert, you need a car or you need to be used to, contacting, getting a driverless service. We've got a lot of that out here. Um, so I ask, well, what do you want? Do you want to walk to your grocery store? Do you want to walk to your doctor? Do you want to
Mm-hmm,
be within a
mm-hmm.
few minutes of a hospital? What are your needs and what are your vision? And then based on what they say, then I usually say, well, this half of a city or, this large section of, multiple cities, that's how I encourage people. And then I always say, of course, drive around because you're going to see things from your perspective that I cannot see from mine because we're not the
Right.
same people.
Right, right. Yeah, no, that's true. No, I never thought about it like that. And me and my girlfriend are kind of going through that home search process too. And we're the same way. I'm like, yeah, it'd be convenient to look at, neighborhoods during the daytime, during the weekend when it's convenient for us. But we actually have to take the time, go see it at night, go see it when, other things, go see it when it's snowing or raining, see if it floods, that type of thing. All things that you have to keep into perspective. But like you said, what one person may catch, another person may not catch. It may be some things that one person is looking for specifically, looking to have or not have in their neighborhood. And, that they need to actually, experience themselves rather than taking the advice of the real estate agent, which, you still want to take the advice of a professional. But, nonetheless, you put in that legwork to see what you want for sure by yourself. So,
Yeah, and one of the things that I always want to delve into is HOAs. We have
ooh,
homeowners associations here that are everywhere. And my
okay.
understanding is that's not the case in the rest of the nation. And our HOAs really control a lot. If you don't bring in your trash can within 24 hours, you can get
Mm,
fined. They usually offer, let me rephrase that. HOAs, a lot of our areas have community pools and community parks, which are, of course, wonderful if those are the things that you value. If you don't want any of those and you don't want a neighborhood, everything to kind of look homogenous, then you don't want an HOA. And so,
right.
therefore, you actually have to look for older homes because all homes began, I mean, all subdivisions started having HOAs in about the 1990s, and absolutely all newer homes, unless they're custom built, are going to be in an HOA. So, and even
Mm.
some custom builts can too. And that's going to have a huge impact. Do you want someone to tell you if you can park your car in the driveway if it's no longer running?
Right,
Little
right.
things like that. That matters too.
Yeah, yeah. And we do have some HOA community. It's the same thing. If you see, community subdivisions for the most part, even in Michigan, you'll see they have, HOAs and things like that. But it's not super common. I guess I can't necessarily, measure it relative to that market. But from what you're describing, it would seem like it's an abundance of communities with these HOA fees. But I don't think that is as common specifically here where we are. So
Yeah.
that would make the Phoenix market a little bit different. Looking forward to this year, 2024. You said, if I'm not mistaken, you believe this is going to present a unique opportunity for home buyers, specifically in Phoenix. Regardless of the external factors, what do you think is going to contribute to this? Why do you have that type of optimistic perspective?
So I'm very optimistic in the area for a bunch of reasons. First and
Uh-huh.
foremost, jobs. You know,
Yeah.
when you've got people moving to an area in droves, and they have been for a very long time, then they need somewhere to live. Not everyone wants to live in an apartment for the rest of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And especially you're not going to build any economic wealth that way
Mm-hmm.
easily. The next thing is we've actually been underbuilding for about 13 years. So this is not just a 2023 or even pandemic situation.
Mm-hmm.
We have been in the early 2000s, especially of 4, 5, 6, 7, we overbuilt. There were way too many houses. There weren't enough people for the jobs. And that's why we crashed so bad. And we did. We were some of
Really?
the worst cities in the nation. It was because of overbuilding. So they stopped. And it's been incredibly slow ever since for our population growth. So we've seen, especially over the last 3 years, a huge run up in prices because people wanting somewhere to live and there just
Mm-hmm.
not being
Mm-hmm.
enough product. So that's part of it. The other thing I want to say is when we're talking about sales volume, I think last year, and I can actually prove that, is we had a significantly low amount of buyers and sellers last year.
Yeah.
Our, let me look into some statistics for you. Let me get them for you. So in the peak of last year, 2023, in June, the total transactions were 6,020 in the entire Maricopa County.
Right.
The trough was in November, and we sold 3,702 homes. The
Mm.
last time we had such low volumes was 2006 and 2002. Now, like I said, we have had massive growth ever since.
Mm.
So when we're talking, population growth for 18 to 22 years, that is that is significant in it showing that we've had much lower than what you would consider normal volume of transactions. More
Mm-hmm.
people have been renting, have been moving in with each other, staying with their parents or staying with their kids or whatever the case may be. That people can only do that for so long. Then they're going to want to buy a home. And so because of that, I think we've got some pent up demand. And if we do, which is actually what I thought in 2021 and 22, that was some pent up demand and our prices skyrocketed. If we do have
Mm-hmm.
some, then I do expect prices to go up. I do not want them to go up like they did, and I don't think
I
they
know.
will
I know.
in 21 or
Yeah.
22. I would be so happy if we just had our kind of normal appreciation of, say, 8 to 10%.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's weird because a whole lot of other places are like 3 to 5 and you're
Yeah,
happy.
that's what I was thinking about 4. But
Yeah, no, 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 no. Oh my goodness, over the last 13, well, I say even 10 years, we tend to do better than that. And
Whew.
so my happy place is 8 to 10%
Mm.
of
Okay.
appreciation because that's when sellers will sell and
Okay.
buyers will buy.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
and buyers get equity,
Mm-hmm.
pretty quickly.
Interesting. That you make me want to actually keep my finger on the pulse in the Phoenix market. I really want to see how that's going to turn out this year specifically. Just it seemed like it's moving different, and it's affected different by the what are usually just national trends or national circumstances. Phoenix seems to be one of those few markets that is still a large market, by the way, but it's still affected completely different. So I'm gonna make sure I do a little bit more checking in with that Phoenix market and see how that turns out throughout that year, and see if it does turn out to be a great time to buy in that market. So I appreciate the insight.
Of
There
course.
is a go ahead, please.
Oh, I just thought of this, and I could have added that before. But one of the things that we also have going for us is the 2020, actually, I'm not even going to say the year. One of the things that we have that's going really well for us is the Chips and Safety Act. When that was passed, there's been billions of dollars coming into our area for infrastructure, and when I say infrastructure, I'm talking about electronics, uh,
Right,
and
right, right.
and the ability to ship product quickly with airports and railroads and stuff like that. So
Mm.
we have, just with TSMC, we have that one company is investing over 40 billion in us. So we aren't the
Whoa.
same as anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently 40 billion is going to shake an economy. Whoa.
It's
Yes.
already, we've already, even over the last year, and they're not even open yet.
Right,
They're
right.
not
Yeah.
open. And we have a lot of companies coming to this area. And I'm talking worldwide.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Good to hear. All I hear is opportunities. That's all I hear is opportunities. So that's great for anyone who's looking to move to that area in that market. Now we do have an election coming up. And a lot of people, it would be, I guess you would say, a lot of people would think that a conventional wisdom that elections would have some effect on the real estate market, the real estate industry in general. So, how do you educate your clients on historical data showing that the elections may have minimal effects on the housing prices or closed volumes, specifically in your market?
It's easy. I just show them graphs. I've
Yeah.
got data through the Cromford Report through 2000. So I can show in the last 23 years exactly what's happened. And we can look at price per square foot, volume of sales, pretty much anything you can think of, anything a statistician would want, I can pretty
Mm-hmm.
much be able to provide for you. And I don't mean through news outlets, I mean directly from the Cromford Report. So I can show that stuff all day long. People, people who think that politics matter to your home life, you're not seeing the big picture. Humans want a roof over their head. It doesn't matter if you agree with whoever's leading the country. You're
Mm-hmm.
not going to say, oh, I'm only going to rent for 4 years. I'm not going to work on my
Right.
financial
Right.
future.
Right.
I'm going to pay rent, throw money away for 4 years, maybe eight. You're just not going to do it. You're going to say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to buy a home. I've got a good job. It's paying me well. I want to buy a home. You're going to do that because of your needs, not because of outside things.
Correct.
Now,
I
one
agree.
thing that can have an impact is gas prices. When gas prices skyrocket, and again, this has nothing to do with politics, when gas prices skyrocket, outlying cities, their housing values go down typically. When the prices go down, then, housing prices can go back up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't get caught up too much in the whole election and the cause and effect of the aforementioned election or whatever the case may be. I'm not one of those people. I'm even of the unconventional thought, and I've talked to other agents about this. I'm thinking while everyone is quiet about something, I'm looking into it. I.e., for a specific example, when the winter time is here or the holidays are here and a lot of people aren't focused on buying and selling, that's when I'm looking like, what are prices looking like? What's the market looking like? So just to put it all into like, I see how some people could see the election as having a huge effect on how things are going to turn out and what they do with their family and their plans. But I think it's just noise. It's just distractions, if you ask me personally. That's why it's so key to get with a professional like yourself who can actually show the data showing it's not going to hinder us whatsoever. It has no effect on us. or little to no effect, I should say. So I'm glad you broke that down, because I feel like that's a common misconception in a way. And that doesn't just apply for the Phoenix market either. If you ask me personally, would you agree?
Oh, totally. Oh yeah,
Right.
that's the same answer for everywhere around well, in the United States. Absolutely.
hmm hmm So I know you are a family oriented type of agent. When you are helping families and they're looking for homes to be in certain neighborhoods, nice neighborhoods, what type of factors do you consider when you're trying to find them the perfect home for a family? And how's the school systems there? How would you describe the school system? I guess relative to any other school system.
Well, I am an optimist, but I'm also a realist. So when
Right.
somebody has a a family, people define it in a whole bunch of different ways. I would just say, do you have kids? Do you not have kids? If you
hmm
do schools matter? As far as Arizona schools, we are not competitive with the nation
Mm.
as far as the quality of most of our schools. So
hmm
I'm gonna be a little honest with that one. I want to say it's always sunshine and beautiful,
Rainbows.
but we definitely struggle, and I'm highly opinionated about that.
Right.
And so when we're
Right.
talking politics, schools have a lot to, politics affects schools drastically. So, but we do have some areas with better schools than others. We also have charter schools. So it, whatever it is that you're looking for, I can help you find. There are certain areas, for example, and the other thing that's kind of interesting here is our school districts are not necessarily limited to cities. So the Chandler School District actually goes from Ahwatukee, which is the very southern part of Phoenix. I'm sorry, I just said all of that wrong. The Chandler School District actually goes through multiple cities. It goes through Chandler, a section of Gilbert, and even over to Higley. So,
Mm,
so when you say you want to be in a certain school district, that isn't necessarily connected with a city.
I
We have
got you.
some school districts that are
Got you.
just for elementary. And then we've got some school districts that are high school, that I'm sorry, I completely was okay. And we have some school districts that are elementary all the way through 12th grade. So
Okay.
we're a very much of a hodgepodge when it comes to school districts. But they do matter. It absolutely matters very much. And if there's a certain school or district, I'm absolutely able to narrow down your search and only provide houses for those areas.
There it is. There it is.
Another thing that we have that a lot of people aren't aware of that are really good for families. When my son was little, we did this every summer. We have a lot of public pools, and our
Hmm.
public pools have slides, sometimes a lazy river with inflatables. We've got lots of diving boards of different sizes, playgrounds for little kids. It's everyone's favorite thing to do in the middle of summer.
I know.
So um, so that's something a lot of people have no idea. We also have a fair amount of parks, believe it or not, and especially depending on the city. For example, Tempe, they have a park. There's a park within every mile, so they're all over the place. And Chandler's pretty good with that too, and so is Gilbert, so is Mesa. So there's always something to do. And we have entertainment that's inside for the summer. So we've got trampoline parks
Yeah,
and
I bet.
different fun parks, things you wouldn't normally see. Skate parks can be inside. So we're not so limited with our weather. Kids can still have a
Yeah.
blast.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. And that's always good to hear too. Just considering the fact that um there is so much going on. Like we just talked about with the election affecting housing and people's perspective on housing. It's it's very, very honest of you to give that feedback in regards to the standings with the school. But that's not to say that all the schools are subpar or anything like that. You probably just have to do a little bit more research, a little bit more digging to see what school is for you or your kids, I should say. And then obviously align that with, your residence and where you will want to stay. So, but still nonetheless great information that we can choose to learn from going forward. Nancy, before we get out of here, I just want to ask you in regards to the perspective of first-time home buyers. There's a lot going on. We just discussed a lot of different factors that go into consideration when purchasing a home. With all of that being said and considered, you dealing with a first-time home buyer, how do you approach working with these first-time home buyers? If you do have a story of a first-time home buyer you worked with recently and how you handle dealing with all of those different factors, can you please talk about it?
Sure. I deal with first-time home buyers all the time, and then
Mm-hmm.
I deal with a lot of repeat and referral customers. So the first thing that I want to do is to sit down with the potential client for an interview. And I'm very specifically using the word interview because we're going to be interviewing each other.
Right.
If we're not a good fit, if we can't start building trust and honesty together, it's not going to be a good experience for either one of us. So to me, it's incredibly important to build that connection. And I do that by asking a lot of questions. For example, what are your 5 needs? And you only get 5.
Mm.
Is location the most important? Number of rooms, HOA or not HOA, yard, no yard, single story, like those are like the basics.
Mm-hmm.
And I always ask, why? If you say, I need a 1 story, we have a lot of 2 stories out here. So then I say, if I found you a 2 story, would you consider it? And I always am pushing the envelope just so that I know exactly why
What
you're
they
saying what you're
require.
saying, so
Right,
that
right.
I will only provide homes that meet that criteria. So you can feel safe in that I'm just not going to say, oh, your limit is here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to show you up here something you don't even want. I'm absolutely going to stay within your criteria until you tell me it's changed. So I know that, that kind of trust and honesty tends to help buyers, but you're going to have a roller coaster. You're going to be excited and then overwhelmed and then excited. And then, something might not work out perfectly the way you want it to. And then you're going to be back to being excited and overwhelmed. It's just a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And that's what I like. I like helping people. I, lift up when they're low, pull down when they're too high, just so that they can have a soothing voice, a calm experience. Another thing is education. Education is critical to making sure that they feel better. You feel better when you know what's going to happen and you know
Yeah.
what the options are.
Yeah.
So I've got a whole system set up. So before we meet, the buyer or seller will get some emails about with some videos about what we're going to talk about and how our meeting is going to go. And with permission to say, if we're not a good fit, it's fine. Go ahead and, I'll shake your hand. I'll walk you to the door. In an interview, you do not have to hire me. And in an interview, I don't have to hire them.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be, like I said, a really good fit, and that's critical to me. So I, before we meet and then after we meet, they're going to know what we're going to talk about and how things are going to work. And then afterward, a summary, because you're not going to remember everything I say.
Yeah, that's a
So,
good point.
yeah, so we got videos, and I do have, written work because I know people like both. And so then once we're in escrow, I have a whole system for buyers and sellers that's got videos, and this is what's going to happen. This is what's happening. Here are some choices. Here's some vendors. Here's this and that. So when we're together, I will tell you this stuff again, but if I don't want to miss anything, and so I've got all these different ways. So you're going to be communicated with videos, with emails, with texts, with phone calls, and in person. So I do the whole kit and caboodle
Yeah.
because everyone does something a little bit differently.
Yeah. We're all different learners. We all comprehend differently and absorb information differently and consume. So that's a great point. And I'm glad that you actually apply those different methods to make sure that you actually reach your clients and provide the information and education. Well, thank you so much, Nancy. We appreciate you for putting up a chair to the closing table. At this point, if you have any last words and or want to tell people how to reach out to you, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Kevin, very much for reaching out to me. And you are an excellent interviewer. I've really enjoyed myself here. Um, I would say that my final words are, I'm on a bunch of different social media outlets, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And you can find me on all of them with Nancy Wittenberg Real Estate. So it's pretty easy. I know the spelling of my last name's a little bit different, but it's the best way to find me.
There it is.
Can you hear the dog in the background?
No, I cannot.
It's okay. Okay. No, we're good.
No, you're fine. Well, thank you again, Nancy. We appreciate you. And for our YouTube audience watching right now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, do us both a favor and hit that like button, please. And thank you. Make sure you also share the content and subscribe to our channel. And if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platforms, please do the same. Give us a like, give us a 5-star rating, and also subscribe for our latest content. And also, Nancy, I'm going to leave our audience with a question before they leave, just to get their brains going. So this is for you, chat. What are your goals for the 2024 year, and how do you plan on reaching them? I'm talking about real estate goals, by the way. Don't tell us now. Leave it in the comments below. Besides that, we'll talk to you next time.
Have a great one.